All right. Well, we are here talking Trailblazers coaching search. We got an update yesterday that the list might be down to just three candidates, possibly, based off the information we saw. I'm Kendall. This is Drew. This is Starter Spurts here with the Y Ball starters. And I just kind of want to start out. Drew, what do you think of this new updated list that includes Chauncey Billups, Mike D'Antoni, and Becky Hammond?
I think it's not very surprising, especially after Jason Kidd withdrew his candidacy publicly. Obviously, he was kind of in a tough spot with that, where Dame kind of publicly endorsed him. They had to kind of say, "I'm not really interested." Um, all Chauncey Billups has been a name that's been thrown around since the beginning. Um, as a guy who won a championship as a player, played on one of the better defenses of all time. He's currently an assistant with the Clippers. Doesn't really have much, or doesn't have any head coaching experience. So obviously he's still pretty unproven. Becky Hammond's been largely talked about as kind of Greg Popovich's successor in San Antonio. So I'm actually a little surprised to see her as a finalist, and I wonder if it's an interview to where Portland actually wants her and she's just giving the courtesy, or if she'd actually seriously consider taking the job over waiting until Popovich retires. And then D'Antoni is another one that doesn't really surprise me. We've talked a lot about how if D'Antoni came to Portland, um, Portland's offense would be one of the best of all time. The defense would probably improve a little bit, but maybe not much. There'd still need to be some personnel moves in the offseason if they're seriously committed to improving the defense. And D'Antoni's not known for his defensive coaching ability, even though it would have to be better than what it was this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any of those three, I think just a coaching change in general is going to help the team, unless if it really ends up being a huge downgrade in the coach that we get. I would have to imagine this is just. I don't know how Becky Hammond or Chauncey Billups will do as coach. I don't think that there's really any way for anybody to know for sure how those two are going to do because they've never been a head coach before. We know that
Right.
Chauncey Billups was a really great NBA player. He's
Yeah.
on a good team with the Clippers right now. And then Becky Hammond is one of the better WNBA players of all time. And she's been on the San Antonio staff for what I believe 7 years now. So for her to be ingrained in a culture
Yeah.
like that has me thinking that obviously she's very competent in everything that I've heard. She's destined to be a coach, whether it's here at Portland or somewhere else, we'll see. But
Yeah.
Becky Hammond seems extremely qualified. But that being said, we don't know for sure how either Chauncey Billups or Becky Hammond will do as coach. There's really no way for us to know for sure. But I mean with D'Antoni, we know what we would get. And I don't know. I might be a little bit more optimistic than you. I think that he would improve the defense enough to the point where it would be maybe around average. That's what he did with the Houston Rockets team. So it would be
Mhm.
interesting to see. But out of those three, who are you kind of hoping to see right now as head coach?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have a favorite out of those three right now. I think I'm not sure. Obviously, we know what we're getting with D'Antoni. Like I mentioned, we don't necessarily know, like you mentioned, what we're getting with Billups and Hammond.
Right.
But Portland seems like a team right now that just needed a coaching change.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like the new coach doesn't matter, because like obviously he does, or she does in this case. But um, I'm not sure that any of these three wouldn't just improve just because of a culture shift and kind of a fresh start. Um, with a still talented roster, we'll see who gets shuffled around this offseason, whether guys like McCollum and Norman Powell and Nurkic are back. But Olshey will still assemble a talented roster now. That's a whole different conversation of whether he's willing to be bold enough to get a truly championship roster. But he will at least have a talented roster. He's
Yes.
proven that there will be talent on the team.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not sure that I necessarily have a favorite, but uh, I think really any of these candidates are really solid candidates and would probably improve Portland in some way. I think Billups and Hammond would be destined to improve the defense.
Yeah.
Just based off the systems there and the players they've worked with. They've both worked with Kawhi Leonard, and they've both worked. Well, Hammond's obviously worked under Popovich, who's probably the best coach of all time. Um, and Billups played for one of the better defenses ever, with the Pistons, who knocked off the Kobe and Shaq Lakers in the finals. Chauncey Billups also intrigues me because I remember when before Dame really became the superstar that he is today, Billups was a player that he was compared to quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a potential for a really strong relationship there. Billups could coach up a defense, but also be the player's coach that Stotts was really respected for. And then with D'Antoni, you just get an incredible offense. Portland's offense would be absolutely unbelievable under D'Antoni. It'd just be, can the defense hold up?
It would be Portland's offense under D'Antoni would be it would be very, very good. And that's it coming after the fact that we were the second ranked offense this year. So I mean, statistically or maybe analytically, it might not show the improvements, but I think us as Blazer fans who really have watched the team over the last, especially few years now, I think that it would be a huge relief because D'Antoni just does such a good job of getting the best out of all of his players and knowing how to utilize them, which was something that Stotts really kind of failed at, I would say, over the last 2-3 seasons. I just didn't really feel like he could get the best out of his players as far as maybe statistics wise or shooting wise, but he never got them cohesive as a full offensive unit. I felt like didn't utilize some of their other strengths well, especially forwards who were limited in their offensive ability. He didn't really know how to use them, whereas somebody like D'Antoni is going to get them set up, going to get the floor set up in a way that will best utilize players like that. I think that we could see Derrick Jones Jr. be a very playable guy under D'Antoni. And I think the same even goes for Becky Hammond. If they follow the way that San Antonio has played, there's no reason why a guy like Derrick Jones Jr. or Nazir Little couldn't get more playing time because they're going to know how to involve them more in the offense. And that's where my question kind of comes in with Chauncey Billups is not necessarily on the defensive side, but more the offensive end, just because he has come from a very defensively ingrained culture back from his playing day. And then even with the Clippers, you've got your star in Kawhi Leonard and then Paul George for the regular season, although he hasn't been terrible in the playoffs, but it's more.
He was really good last night.
Yeah, he was really good last night in their win against Utah. But still, though, I think Chauncey Billups is going to come more from a defensive side, which would help a lot, obviously, especially when you do have two great guards like Dame and CJ. I mean, theoretically, you don't need to change the offense too much, but I think it's going to be interesting to see who we end up going with. Yeah, personally for me, I think I kind of want to see D'Antoni or Hammond, but I'm not opposed to Billups, although I know he does have the stuff in the past that Blazer fans are worried about. But I think it'd be cool to see the first female coach come to Portland, and not even just that it's a female coach, but like she is a good coach. Like from all indicators, she seems to be like a legitimately really good coach, which does speak volumes.
Right. And we'll see if they decide to interview any more candidates or if this does end up just kind of being the final three. I think Damian Lillard is going to have a lot of say in the coach. And I think this is a really important hire for Portland to see if they can keep guys like Norman Powell, who's a free agent, someone like Nurkic, who indicated he's not necessarily committed to staying in Portland long-term, but would under the right circumstances.
Right.
Someone like even Derrick Jones Jr., who can opt out of his contract, I believe. And there's no way he would have stayed if we had kept Stotts. I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Stotts had no idea how to use him.
Probably not. That being said, though, he wouldn't have got any more value on the market had he opted out. So, especially with the year that
not necessarily, no, but under really any of these new coaches, I think he would have a better role.
Yeah.
Because under Billups or Hammond, they could utilize his defensive skills and his slashing ability, and then D'Antoni, obviously on offense, knows how to maximize everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, well, it's
I
gonna
think
be.
he's a player. Him and Norman Powell, if we can re-sign Norman Powell, I think would really benefit under any of these hires.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I think even Damon CJ would benefit if they stayed together under these hires, but I just think talent wise or roster construction wise, we would be limited even with any of these three coaches. I think there's only so much they could do. But all right, well that's been another starter spurts roundup. We will be back again later this week with another discussion, probably Blazers related. So stay tuned, and we'll see who we end up getting.